Hello there, and welcome to another exciting episode here on the Green Living Chat. My name is David Mensa. I'm your host, and it's exciting to come your way again this week. On this week's environmental sustainability segment, we are bringing you part 2 of our conversation with Olga Johnston Antonova, talking about the fashion industry and sustainability. So this is part 2 of a 2-part series where we were looking into the fashion industry and how it has evolved over time, its impact and contribution to climate change, and how it is changing right now. In part 1 of this conversation, we talked about how the fashion industry evolved in Olga's eyes right from her experience in Germany and other European countries and Russia. We digged into the various experiences she had growing up in the industry and becoming a professional designer and experiencing different cultures within the fashion industry. This episode is readily available on all podcast platforms, and I will recommend this to you to check it out before we dive into part 2 of the conversation. But just to give you a gist of it, Olga told us that.
But until I came to Berlin in 2014, I didn't really come across sustainability in fashion or across that question. I was really shocked when I thought, I'm now learning about the negative impact of this fun industry. Oh my God. And I thought, I'm in that industry. I read all the contemporary magazines, publications. This knowledge escaped me and nobody mentioned it. All these fashion people around me, I was really shocked and I thought, this is very serious. If me involved, not in production, but in content creation, is not aware of such a problem, what can we expect from people who are more removed from fashion industry?
Yeah, so in part 2 of this conversation, we are looking into fast fashion and how it has evolved so quickly. Some of the solutions that the industry is adapting. We are looking into recycling and the importance of collaboration in minimizing the impact of the fashion industry on the environment. Now we look into climate change and the industry's role in contributing to this effect. We talk about showbiz, celebrities, virtual fashion, and many more in this particular episode. So before we get into this exciting conversation, I would like you to share this episode with a friend of a friend so that we can get more people being educated on the conversations that we are having on this podcast. Why don't you give us a star rating on any platform where you are listening to this podcast and share your comments with us or shoot us an email. Our social media details in the show notes. So grab a coffee and let's dive into this episode with Olga. You are listening to the Green Living Chat podcast, a podcast where we discuss emerging environmental issues around the world and to find sustainable solutions. I'm your host, David Mensa. We use this platform to support environmental-related initiatives, researches, and projects. This podcast is brought to you by EcoWamet Solutions in Ghana with a mission to going back to green. So join us on this train with new episodes this and every Sunday. Here we go. One thing I like about your story is it has a mixture of cultures. You've had experiences from cultures and you've seen how the transition of fashion has been. There is a new trend, fast fashion. And before you get into the impact of the materials and all that, I want you to briefly touch this aspect. What is fast fashion? Because when you Google fast fashion, it's just everywhere.
So if you think originally fashion, I think before 1800s was a slow fashion because people made clothes more or less like me growing up. And my mother made things for me. But then with the Industrial Revolution, we introduced new technology like sewing machines. So we could already have factories. Unfortunately, it was also connected to sweatshops situations already then. And there were also disasters already then when there were fires and people working long hours. And of course, imagine the conditions at that time. So we come to the last century now, and after the war, industry is developing, I think by the 60s and 70s, still in a slow way, but we have innovations. We have polyester, we have nylon, we have some new materials. We still, as ourselves and the environment can afford it, we can experiment and create. I think 60s and 70s were an interesting time before any of this really fast fashion industrial process, when fashion clothing became a form of personal expression. And of course, we had already high street and we had high street brands, but somehow it wasn't so overwhelming. It wasn't at the level of overproduction. But then in the 90s, and that's what I witnessed when I moved to Dublin, I just happened right there, the end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s, the really low-cost fashion exploded. And if you think about it, then online shopping also takes off. The high streets become very similar in every city, the same big fashion shops, the cheap fashion shops there. And as I say, yes, we have a lot of people to dress. Fantastic, we have affordable clothes. As I said, we didn't question how is it that it's so affordable. Suddenly, for the first time, people could afford looks from the catwalks. So fast fashion was exploiting that I suppose, a lot of people's desire to look like a celebrity or like a fashion latest look from the very famous design house. But of course, the manufacturing was using cheap materials. We didn't realize at that time how polluting they were, how dangerous they were, how they killed the environment in other ways, like the lack of biodiversity. If you grow the same culture like cotton all the time, using the fertilizers, huge environmental impact. But also the manufacturing went offshore and it moved to places where we don't see, where the labor was the cheapest. And we were using low wages, people without guaranteed rights or safety. So the supply chains became very long, really spread out across the world. And people buying this fashion, they had no visibility, no transparency, and no even understanding that this is possible. So the ideas of turning styles very quickly so that you can only buy this style for 1 week or a few days, that created this agiotage, we say in Russian, like when you run and you want to get it straight away. Little did we know that it had a very negative impact on everything and on our own psyche as well. How come we wear the clothes and we can throw it away? Clothes became disposable. So this is the dark side of fashion and the description of it in a very blunt, negative way. Yeah, exploiting people, taking the resources, the cheapest materials, and they're the most polluting, they're cheaper to make. And you don't need to introduce systems that are filtering water, that require more responsible processing. You make it on the cheap, basically. So there is a lot of abuse of the nature and of the people. But I say also of the consumer, because you come by again. Do they really care?
So at this point, we realize that it's very obvious that the root of fashion industry is as a result of overconsumption and overproduction. And clearly, we can see the impact of fast fashion on the ecosystem, society, and many aspects of our lives. But what is the industry doing about this? Is the industry willing to make a change? Now, Olga told us about some of the contributions the industry is adapting to make a change.
Now, on a positive side, can I say, because, this is 90s, 2000s, we already, even if you just very new to this sustainable fashion industry, you should also be quite critical. It's very easy to blame fast fashion, but we were a part of it. We were celebrating this cheap clothes. So with that in mind, I think taking your own responsibility, you should look at it. And what are they doing now? I won't speak for every fast fashion company, but I can tell you they are changing and they have resources to change. Indeed, overproduction is a problem. Overconsumption shouldn't be happening. For example, H&M, they have a H&M Foundation that sponsors so-called Global Change Awards. It's an annual event. And yes, an award, it's a competition where startups, innovators that develop sustainable fashion ideas in design, in even blockchain, in different technologies, in textiles, especially in recycling, they can go to, and they go there and they come there. And I would recommend to look up their website, because you will see the ideas that come there, the winners. Every year there is a winner. I believe 3 winners, and the very big prize is divided. Then what is good about it, these people, well, they get visibility, they get also financial support, because then there are other financial incubators are involved that support it, including one in Amsterdam, very well known for people in sustainable fashion. It's called Fashion for Good. And in fact, and because of my personal connection with Amsterdam, this incubator also functions as a museum. It had a space right in the city center on Rokin, not far from Dam, and actually Central Station. If you are in Amsterdam, you can visit it as a tourist, and you learn about sustainable fashion, what we're talking about, but you will see the history of it and the examples. What we know is the fast fashion companies, I can only speak for H&M because this is where I look to, because it provides me with a lot of interesting innovation as well. And H&M, when they find H&M Foundation, the Global Change Awards, when they get the startups, when they give the prizes, when other incubators get involved, H&M is not keeping it as a secret. It's not becoming their property. It's for everybody. So it supports all of us. It's really for goodness. So this was only about the impact of fast fashion. Okay, they have damaged a lot. This is for sure a fact.
A lot.
A lot. Is it enough what they're doing now? Probably not. This is just an example of what they're doing, because in a way, there's a big gap between science and what we need for the solutions, between environmental science, then the material culture science, where we create solutions, and the need of the industry. But something like Global Change Awards, they create this platform. So today, we need this kind of platforms where the need of the industry, the need of the planet can meet the solution makers and finances as well, investors that want to know really what is happening and where do we find these solutions. And one of the things also connected to this foundation and Global Change Awards, for example, this is a kind of a sideline, but I think it's very telling. For us, we're trying with fashion, so every garment, a lot of resources went into it, whether good resources, sustainable, or whether it is toxic resources, it's there, it's done. We're trying now to keep it as long in the system as possible so that we don't throw it away and don't replace it with the new garment, for example. So one of the ways of keeping resources in the system, it's a principle of circular economy. And the more you're into sustainability, the more you will hear of circular economy and circular business models. And that's what fashion is about as well now. It's not only technological innovations, it's also business model innovations, and they're all based on circularity. So one of the examples I was going to give, and to bring it back to that platform that allows that, and to bring back it to the actually lack of these platforms that allow the ideas and the needs to meet and solutions to happen. All of us together, we have a problem with recycling, because to keep the textiles in the endless loop, ideally, we need to bring back what we don't use anymore into the recycling plants, back into the system, and being able to recycle it in a way that we don't downgrade it when we mash it up and create some low grade, losing value things for building sites or for playgrounds or insulation, or really losing the value of the material. In the ideal world, and that's where recycling industry is aiming for, we collect what we have and we create virgin quality materials without going back to the nature. So we get virgin quality polyester, virgin quality cotton. Somehow it's happening, it's possible, but mostly not yet on a scale that we need. This only 1% is recycled of the textiles that we have. One of the problems in recycling is most of our fabrics are mixed. Today, we were able to do up to today really monofabrics. We could recycle denim into denim, wool into wool. But if it's a mixed fabric, you downgrade it. You make something of lesser value. You don't restore it to its original resource. And if that is the idea, of course, we need scientists to know how do we separate. Also, about 3 years ago, even before, the research started before, but the solution came to existence about 3 years ago, was from this H&M Foundation. In parallel, there was a similar research in Sweden, and they found their own solution, how to separate mixed fabrics. They could only look into a combination, say, of cotton and polyester. Now, I am not so precise, 100%, I don't remember, but 2 of these different materials of 2 different origins were taken, and how do you separate it from the fabric? The research was done by the Research Textile Institute in Hong Kong. Millions of US dollars were put into it. The solution was found. H&M has created the machine. It's available for everybody in the field. You can find materials online about this. But what was interesting for me, because I thought, okay, and I sometimes think, yeah, the Russians also, we have research, but do we know that's what kind of research is needed in those areas? And I looked into, and how did the people in Hong Kong found the solution for that? They went to Japan, where traditionally, okay, we can see this as a geographical connection, maybe closer. It makes sense because Japan is a very advanced country in terms of textiles and textile development, traditionally for a long time. But they had to go to retired textile scientists, and they put them together. So it wasn't the yarn startup people of today who have no idea of this heavy scientific process. And you know what? I sometimes think, yeah, you can be all good, for this activism and shouting, but who can do the job? Sometimes it is really old, experienced people who are not asked and who are not there shouting that we know the solution. So imagine how it is difficult to put this together. So they go to these retired scientists in Japan, put them together, give them a task, resources, and create the solution. And for me, somehow it is so showing of the way forward of how we really need to communicate more and bring people from different fields together. And we need these platforms, and how it should be old knowledge, old people, young people together, how it doesn't work really. Also, what I learned from seeing the pollutions from the fashion industry, this kind of systemic, how everything is a system really, how the earth is a system. It can only stay in balance, in harmony. And that's where the word sustainability, it comes from the idea that the earth is able to sustain its own health, its own balance. It's not one system. Thousands of processes are happening, but they work well together. And this is sustainability. And we are trying, as an industry, for example, any industry, but say fashion industry, if you're breaking constantly this homeostasis of the earth, with your own taking, and giving, polluting, you're not contributing to your own opportunity to live long, because you're destroying the actual base, the health on what you rely on. So it's not yesterday that actually fashion industry woke up, because you'd be impressed, maybe, as I was, to find out that already in 2010, German company Puma has developed so-called environmental profit and loss account, which means what? It means treating nature and resources as a business partner, if you like. So you have to give back. Today, environmental profit and loss account is, well, advisable to have for every company, but a very big fashion group, Kering, that holds a lot of famous fashion houses, Balenciaga, Dior, Puma is part of it. Now, they have developed environmental profit and loss account. You can go on the website of Kering and find that page and go through every step. But Puma was the first company that did it, to see how much cost to the environment they create, even if the environment is not asking for to be paid. There is a formula how you calculate that, how you convert the damage, so to speak, into Even you can express it in financial terms, but that is not enough. Of course, you have to stop the damage and you have to find the alternative solutions. But in the first place, you need to understand you have the damage and the areas where the damage is the biggest. And then you can see, okay, which solutions do I implement first? What is most urgent? Where the damage is the biggest? What can maybe wait, but where there is no more waiting? And then where we need the scientists and the thinkers, okay, we need to change materials. It is the material stage where we take cotton, a very polluting culture, very thirsty culture, needs a lot of water, needs a lot of fertilizers, because we have developed this genetically modified cotton seeds. We are not growing organic cotton. There's very little organic cotton still. There's a big initiative. There are many initiatives to start. There's certification. As a consumer, you have a choice. You can buy organic cotton things, they're certified. You can buy, there's other certifications very close to organic level, BCI, Better Cotton initiatives. So there are many already ways for the consumer to define what they choose to shop for, that I'm not creating a negative impact when I shop. Because cotton, being a genetically modified seed, it doesn't reproduce, so the farmers have to buy new cotton seeds every season. They rely on insecticides and pesticides. It just doesn't grow without it. So that's of course not organic. That is very polluting. The amount of water. So if you put that footprint together, and then here is a very good example where already human rights are often violated, because these farmers, and we talk about China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, really their livelihood depends on it. It could be low harvest year. There are so many problems, or they get sick from working with this polluting and toxic chemicals. I don't want to make it a very sad story, but I should say
it is actually. It's a very sensitive issue.
There are millions of people getting into hospitals with poisoning, and then many commit suicide, especially if they don't get the return. And if you see cotton growers, farmers, Pakistan, Bangladesh issues, you'll be shocked. Imagine that there is this company, by the way, also discovered by Global Change Awards, the ones that I mentioned before, called Gali. It's a startup in USA, but originally from Brazil, where they're growing cotton in a lab, and it's grown from cells, not from a plant. So if we think that the conventional cotton production requires, as I said, massive amounts of water, land, cocktail of chemicals, produces green gas emissions, then it has this ethical issues as well. Then when you grow this cotton, and it is a scalable solution, and I'm glad to see that they were one of the winners, so they get support, and so we should look out and wait for the results, what they come up with. Advantages of a lab-grown cotton: it can be grown anywhere, it doesn't depend on soil, doesn't depend on the weather conditions, so the harvest is guaranteed, and it's not exhausting the land, the soil, and our planet. And what they say, and I can quote them, the method is 10 times faster and uses less than 80% water and land, while emitting only a fraction of the greenhouse gas compared to traditional cotton. And they say the price would be the same as for the high quality cotton on the market today. This is one of the examples of the alternative fabrics that are becoming a reality because there is a need. And now we're looking at the combination of science and biology, genetics, all of that can meet. And I think sometimes we're actually at the level where we can produce fabrics in a lab. We didn't think about it before, but also we probably couldn't play with we create this leather from collagen using like a fermentation process, but still you need the total understanding of DNA and things like that. That wasn't a common knowledge. It's still not a common knowledge, but it wasn't there. Now we can combine really rocket science, quantum ideas with nature. I asked once a student, also about 5 years ago, graduate of St. Martin's School of Fashion, I said, how is sustainability taught in your school? And he already then said, there is no separate class on sustainability. Everything we do, every subject is based on sustainability. And in that sense, by sustainability, we mean creating things, in our case, garments, textiles, or ready-made products that do not damage the environment, the people, but also create profit. But it's not so straightforward for the companies to change into sustainable things. Even certification is expensive. Organic fabrics, sustainable fabrics are more expensive than conventional, but we know there is a good reason behind that. And we, in reality, because I'm an independent researcher, I can say we don't need so much clothes. We don't need it. I love the creativity of fashion and craftsmanship and heritage, that let's preserve the achievements of brands like Chanel, Hermes, Dior. We want it. We want to have designers that are able to create on that level. It's very rare we get such a designer, but it's possible. We do get new brands coming up. They still have to stay within, I think, a limit. If there is a market for them, fantastic. If everybody is dressed in Chanel, brilliant. And it's something that you don't throw away. You've paid so much for it. And you also preserve the craftsmanship. Maybe it's the garments that have this high-end, high-quality, high craftsmanship. Fashion is, in a way, eternal. In that sense, it is sustainable that you keep it in the system. So you have to be smart, I don't know, as a consumer, what you invest into. And as a producer, you today also think, what happens to my garment at the end of its life cycle, at the end of use? Can I take it back as a designer and remake it into something? That is happening.
Interesting innovations and ideas right there. Knowing the urgency of climate change, I was a little bit curious to know the role of the fashion industry in reducing emissions along its supply chain. So we dived in a little bit into the urgency of climate change and what the industry is doing about that.
Now, from scientists, we know that we actually have a time limit in terms of our own healthy and happy life on this planet, because of course our planet survives. It goes on for many, many, many more years. But we want to stay here, and we believe we want our children to stay here. And with the climate change, the issues, of course, again, you can look it all up. If the Earth is losing the conditions that are suitable for the human life, whether it is too hot, whether it is too wet, too windy, too dry, where we have the migration, first because people have no water to drink, and they do come to Siberia, where originally there was not many people living there. Remember, I started with the Lake Baikal that contains 21% of the fresh water of the Earth, but has tiny population, 1 million people only around it. People will be looking for fresh air, for water. Do we want that situation? No. Do industries change? Not only fashion, but others. We have to demand that. We have to keep it in check. And from the politicians, we know now in November there will be a summit, Scotland, on climate. And we also know this summer the latest document, report from United Nations on climate change came out, and in August, and it looked at different industries, and it looked at situation that involved more than 200 scientists from universities around the world working on it. So it is the latest, most comprehensive and trustworthy report on climate. And it does give us hope. Still, it says it's not too late, but it now says for sure people are responsible for the climate change. That means, as some claim, that we entered a new geological era. We were living in Holocene for 10,000 years, and we're happy breathing and moving and swimming and eating. And unfortunately, that's comfortable place we have destroyed with taking too much and giving back toxic stuff, because also it's controversial still. But after that report, for me, it's not controversial. Anthropocene as a new geological era that changed it's clearly here and comes from our activity, the human activity on Earth. And this is the result. So we're going to live in the era that is affected by our own actions in the fashion industry. How much is being done really and thought about? So maybe we will be on time with the solution. It's
Hopefully.
stopping, of course, the emissions and changing to renewable resources. And in the fashion industry, using 60% of things are made from polyester nylon, the product of the petrochemical industry, which is not renewable. So of course, we're also looking for solutions, and there are many already in place. For example, fashion industry is in a way helping collecting, say, plastic bottles and making them into new fabric, into new yarn that is turned into fabric, is a temporary solution. I wouldn't say it's the answer now to all the problems. It is not. It is still creating polyester that sheds microfiber. That's another, kind of worms that we have opened. Yeah. And so we're looking for better fabrics even than that. But for now, we're keeping in the system what we have. If plastic bottles and the nylon fishing nets that are dumped by the fishermen in the sea, if they're taken out and used by a fashion industry to create new nylon, new polyester, it's already very good that we're not pumping oil and using that. So this is one of the way of turning the resources that we already have into high quality new resources instead of taking them from the land. You should look at the final thing, a garment in our case. You should look at it not as a final product, but as a process. Then you understand where this environmental footprint comes from and how it accumulates. At the first stage, you have the materials. You should look, okay, how polluting or how good are they? What can I replace it with? Second stage, these materials, whether it is in the fashion industry, there's so many cotton, polyester, wool, viscose that comes from trees. Am I using the right trees? Are they replaced? Can I find the solutions? And there are solutions. We're not covering them here, but there are solutions for the sustainable viscose. There are better materials, better original input materials. So first you look at that. We have wool and leather, tanning of leather, very polluting process. At the same time, it could be a byproduct of agriculture, and you don't really recreate something new, but we have a lot of leather substitutes now, and some of them are very good. Some are not great, but some are very good, and we're getting there. So this is the first stage, materials. Then how these materials are made into a fabric. As I said, the processing, like leather tanning, very heavy, toxic. What do you do in order to reduce the toxicity? Do you use vegetable dyes, organic dyes for fabrics? Our fabrics, we like to have it that it doesn't crease, it doesn't, it's fireproof. So it's again another chemical stuff.
Another process.
Yeah. So we use chemicals for that. What is the replacement? What is the solutions there? Then we come to the production side, to the manufacturing. Can I use zero waste design so I don't have this offcuts all the time? That becomes waste. What do I do with the offcuts? Do I turn them into a new business model as well? Do I tell everybody in the world, you come to my factory and you have this extra materials if you're a small brand? And this is all happening. But you're at every stage, you're responsible on human rights across all of these stages as well. What is done that people are paid and they're not damaged? So manufacturing also, you look in what conditions people work, but also you look how sustainable is the building. Is it using renewable energy? And then so if we stay with the garment, so the garment is made, even labeling, what do I use for that? Packaging, plastic or not plastic, renewable packaging, transportation. Am I using green transport? And also there are solutions already in place. But just to keep in mind, do I use local production? I don't need to transport. And from there, it is being sold. Do I sell responsibly? How do I sell? Is my retail also is not damaging or not, and then when you sell, apparently at home when we already buy a garment, we create a lot of CO2 emissions by the way we look after the garment. So we need to be educated on how to look after it. First of all, maybe we don't even need to buy it. We can reuse, and as a stylist, say, like, shop in your own wardrobe and then change. But if you bought, how do you look after the garment? How do you know how to extend the life of a garment? How did you buy? Will it always be there with you? You're not tired of it, that you can wear it for a long time. Maybe you are smart and it's an investment piece that you can resell easily. So all of this are taken into account. And then, okay, we came to the end of the usage of the garment. For some reason, we're not using it anymore. maybe it's expired completely, it's full of holes, and then, bring it to the recycling plant. And we hope that recycling plant knows what it's doing. Is there something in place that it makes it easy for me to bring it to recycling plant? So it involves other players. We now even have technology that, like a microchip. And there's actually a Berlin startup called Circular Fashion that has also was supported by that incubator mentioned earlier. They provide this technology like a digital ID of a garment, where you can trace back to the materials, to the manufacturing. You can also know how to look after the garment. But at the recycling end, when it comes to the plant, and remember we mentioned every textile for recycling should go in its own stream. We need to know the composition. On the label, we often cannot read it. But this ID, the digital ID, allows the recyclist at the receiving end to scan or to understand what. So this is, guys, a very big system. If you think at every stage, so imagine every stage has to be sustainable. That means non-damaging to planet and people and profitable. And then between them, the connections should be so smooth and perfect and work as a circle that we don't lose anything, and we keep everything in
the same
the loop. And then we're living in a circular system, regenerative system, and that's where we're heading for. And if you think even Copenhagen Fashion Summit has been around for 11 years, its sole purpose was to bring these issues to attention, to start looking for solutions. So imagine already 10 years ago, there was awareness when Puma made the environmental profit and loss account. Copenhagen started this event. Now there are many more events and initiatives, and so much has shifted. There are books, academic books written on it. There are practical solutions, but it's just kind of dripping down to people only recently on a big scale. I always like to tell people this is not an invented issue, and there are proper solutions being looked for at least for 10 years in a strong way. And there is legislation changes, there is tax on producers in France. British Parliament was really involved in this textile, and they're working on it, legislation. So it will hit everybody, so that you produce also responsibly, and we consumers can consume responsibly. And I think when in doubt, don't buy. I'm sure you have enough in your wardrobe. Go back, ask a stylish friend or a stylist.
There is something that we haven't mentioned yet, showbiz and virtual fashion. And I just want you to touch briefly on that. When it comes to showbiz, is one of the sector that is really having, let's say, high impact, and the consumption is really, really high. And I think I remember the last time we had a conversation for the prep chat, you made mention about something you're really excited about, how virtual fashion is actually coming in to help to solve this whole issue. So can you tell us a little bit about the problem in showbiz and probably costumes and, all that, and talk a little bit about what virtual fashion is?
I think show business should be really a solution to this, because of also how we follow that and how impactful it is. Yeah. And actually we have fantastic examples from it, Leonardo DiCaprio, as a celebrity from that area, is supporting, investing into sustainable fashion and sustainable fashion brand. Allbirds, you might know this brand that creates trainers, and we need more people like that, doing good. We had Emma Watson at some point; she was advertising sustainable fashion, and I think more and more celebrities turning up responsibly on the red carpets, repeating the looks, and so I think it's going slowly in the right direction. We need more. And of course, in terms of values, that the whole celebrity culture, we should also, I think we're more discerning now.
Look at it again.
But that we want real models of behavior, lifestyle models, rather than empty, fake icons.
I think now we've gotten to like the extreme. It's like too much, because the value of being a celebrity has actually is changed. I was actually listening to a podcast this afternoon about how celebrities really feel about, they being seen outside in the same outfit they wore yesterday or probably a month ago, right? And I think that is actually affecting the whole thing, because every time they appear outside, they need to be in a different clothes. So what happened to the old one that they wore? What happened to what they wore yesterday, last month, last year? I mean, it's getting too much. I think the values need to change, and the idea behind that need to change, evolve.
And yes, some celebrities, it's also become a very popular trend. They're selling their used and often not used wardrobes, or they give them to the rental platforms. So there is a possibility there for a business model if they want to continue to be showing off in new garments, which of course there is no need for that. Yeah, it's a big question how we cannot dictate them, but actually we can. We can say not interested in that kind of celebrity. How you show that? No, it's very hard, because if you're interested in that kind of look and then you go and source it, and then the following day there's something new, it's an issue. But if celebrities were also actually doing it more responsibly and at least saying, yes, this goes on sale again, and it's or returns, or I borrow clothes, I rent clothes, because we have high-end rental platforms as well. I think that would be very cool. And hopefully we're getting there. Yeah, this sustainability should become a part of their celebrity image, celebrity value. But as I say, we have some good examples as well, of course. But in terms of appearance, if it's not a public appearance, if it's an appearance online somewhere, this is, of course, where virtual fashion can come in very handy, because you can have access to a unique outfit and appear on it on social media channels, for example. And virtual fashion can be as fantastic and unreal, garments made of, I don't know, rainwater and nearly wind, but also it could be our normal tangible clothes replicated in virtuality, and that has a lot of practical usage as well, because you can try on an outfit and you say, yeah, this color and this look and this shape is fantastic on me, I want to order a real life thing. But you have kind of done a research and you've already seen, in a way, like a virtual styling thing. That is for me, that is not for me. So before the thing was even produced, and then you order. But it's not an instant gratification situation. And of course, that's what we're trying to get away from. So virtual fashion, there's one thing to be warned here. Virtual fashion has very low environmental footprint. If it's produced in this 3D programs, if it is sold like that as well. But now virtual fashion is like NFT art, non-fungible tokens. If it is sold for big money as a unique piece, it depends how it is stored on blockchain, so that you can trace back the ownership. And apparently, there were recently articles about that from journalists that investigated the whole thing, the footprint of storing it, because using the electricity. So if you're, depending what blockchain you're using, more than likely the footprint in terms of CO2 emissions calculated into that, it's a very different, of course, effect. But in terms of energy, and that's what we are now fighting, the CO2 emissions, it could be 100 times higher than from a ready-made product. So we have to be very careful how we deal with this virtual fashion. So there are non-damaging ways in terms of pollution, and then there are also very heavy. And because this came to the fore and people understand that, I think the pressure is mounting slowly for a more responsible way. So now they're saying, oh, it depends which technology, which blockchain technology. So, but again, it's another thing that we should then get into and understand and say, okay, I buy from this, but I don't buy from that. So there will be more demands for sustainability in that area. So you can see how the whole thing is always developing. So virtual fashion can be very fun thing. And for many online influencers, it's a fantastic solution. You don't have to buy. You can cheaply buy a virtual replica, if it's not without this blockchain technology. And that worked very well. And during pandemic, magazines, that there were issues with shifting clothes between borders from big brands to the local offices of fashion magazines. Then they used virtual fashion designers to recreate, I'm sure, again, with license and permission, because if you recreate a Gucci product, you should have the right to do so, because somebody that was for magazines, for example, and you could wear it or you could see the styles displayed in a magazine on a model. But it's a very interesting, this is a very promising thing. A big part of the future of fashion is virtual fashion.
I just hope that it will be like the way forward. But of course, all these issues also come with its legislation. And as you were saying, things that we need to control and all that. It's been an interesting conversation. And before we get out of this conversation, I would like you to tell us a little bit about your current business, what you're doing, and how people can also probably collaborate with you.
Yes, I do a lot of education. Fashion designers in schools where it hasn't reached yet. Of course, there are schools that are cutting edge and they are the example of, but there are so many new fashion designers that have to learn about this somehow in their own way. So I come to help and develop the sustainable fashion curriculum. So if you're even a university level or if you're a private fashion school, so I help to develop sustainable fashion curriculum and classes, and even teach the classes or do the master classes. And I also speak. This is only a part of the thing, but you heard me saying I will speak at the events and I moderate fashion, sustainable fashion discussions, because I'm always looking at the very broad and wide picture. I also actually write for a publication. This particular is a Russian publication as a journalist, also working on projects that consulting brands, but not only brands, of how to become sustainable is very important. With brands, I like to take apart not only, okay, I want to become sustainable, what do I do first? And of course, we don't do it for greenwashing purposes. Oh, now I'm using sustainable packaging, I'm done. No, it's about showing the whole thing and the whole approach. So with consulting sustainable brands is very, very interesting, because I always like to start with the mission. What am I here for? What am I achieving? Because, you can relook at your own business, connected with your own goals and values, and you might decide, I stop now, I do only virtual fashion. And this has happened. I know of these cases that I was involved in. So it's important, because if you get down to your real purpose as a business, your business will always survive. Conditions will change, materials will change, because you're following the purpose that is needed, that you are here for on earth to implement, to live, to give, but also it responds to the need of the earth, if you like. And that's where, so I help companies to find that purpose. And then it seems easy to find the sustainable solutions, because it's like a menu. Then we look at the materials, the processes, the design, the factories, the consumer, the business model. It is this unifying purpose, why, and then already what and how, that gets me going. And so bringing it to sustainability, sustainable development goals, to bring your business to that is very important. And right now, I'm telling you, I'm going to go outside. I'm here in the west of Ireland, in the beautiful countryside, and I'm going to do a photo shoot. I have a team here, right? Yes, and I will be doing a photo shoot using clothes, promoting sustainable fashion. Me as a model for the midlife people and up, because also there's a generation of women, I think a bit outside of this discussion. They're not very young to be a natural part of this, and they don't even maybe know how to approach this and what it is, and they already have lived for so long with the clothes they have and the ways that they buy. So I'm really looking into, no, I want to help them and I want to bring them into the conversation. These are people with money that they really can affect what they buy and how much and what they do with the clothes they already have. So I'm going to both style, we've already done the creative ideas and direction, but also model for sustainable fashion. So modeling sustainable fashion, midlife plus women, that is also my passion, because that's where, in a visual way, in a kind of a tangible way, not only the ideas way, I can show what I'm about. So today we're going to go to the special location that combines the beach, the sand, the dunes, the greenery, the stones, and show the work of a local artisan here in the west of Ireland. She makes a beautiful felting fabrics in a very nice way. A lady from Holland. She has been living here for a long time, and she has wall hangings, but also some garments. And we're going to play around with that and have fun.
Sounds very interesting.
So, and yes, I would be interested in helping people getting to becoming sustainable with their own wardrobes or with their own businesses in fashion.
Thank you so much, Olga. I don't know, for spending time with us. This session has just been amazing. All the details of the things that you've talked about, of course, you're going to help us to have links to some of the things that you mentioned. We're going to put that in the show notes. But most importantly, if you're listening and you think that you would like to get in touch with Olga and collaborate with her, or even get details of the things that she said, we're going to put her details also in the show notes of this. Dig down into it, send her an email, shoot her a call, and get in touch with her, because she just has so much, and it's going to be a learning journey for us, because we all have a role to play in this sustainability journey. So before we end this podcast, I don't know if you have any last words, someone that you want to say shout outs to, or probably maybe your last message to, I don't know, your fellow workers in the fashion industry.
Still, I would go back to somewhere in the beginning of our conversation where I said, I think check everything you do, all of your actions and even thoughts, bring them to this filter about beauty, truth, and goodness. Am I contributing to creating more beauty, truth, and goodness? Am I a beautiful person in terms of how I behave, what I do in business and outside, in my private sphere, with myself even? Am I beautiful? Am I honest? Am I creating goodness? What am I here for? I think it relates, it's kind of simple. I don't want to sound too preaching, but for me, it was so easy when I realized, because simplicity is also key. And am I living and working in a kind of simple way? And for me, the easiest to achieve that simplicity is to check by these eternal values, beauty, truth, and goodness. And then I think everything is perfect and super sustainable.
Those are really powerful thoughts. I actually don't even know what to say. I think I have to think about this over and over. But at least what I'm looking forward to is your photo shoot. We are really looking forward to this project, and please share with us whenever they are ready.
It will be at least on Instagram.
Yes, for sure. I'm going to look out for them. So.
And come to Ireland for your photo shoots. This is a beautiful, beautiful place. And I have a space here that I really think, God, this should be a place where also the ideas can meet. It's a beautiful countryside place I was developing and now sharing with some creative teams as well.
Beautiful.
So beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Olga. Really, I appreciate your time today. Really, even though you have a photo shoot today, you made time for this conversation. I really, really appreciate it. So really looking forward to, really talking to you again. And yeah, wonderful chat. Wonderful chat. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Wonderful for me, and all the best to the listeners. We're all together in it. And it's through fashion, we can make everything so much better. It's great. And I'm grateful fashion brought me even to this podcast, and I'm able to reach out to people that might be touched as well by this conversation.
Yeah. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you. See you.
So, looking at part 1 of this conversation, right down into part 2 of this conversation, we have touched on so many things, but there are some few things that I would like to highlight to you who are listening to this conversation. There is a big gap between research and the industry, and that is something where we have to take a good look at. There is obviously challenges in our recycling industry, and it's something that I hope that research and the industry can come together to solve these kind of issues, as well as policies and relevant institutions. There is definitely also a big gap in collaboration when it comes to young people, experienced people, and all stakeholders. Young people are out there advocating, but then we leave the old and experienced people who can also make an impact and teach us the things that we did not know. These are areas where we have to take a look at in moving forward. But my take-home message, or question if you will, would be that all the solutions seem to match towards changing materials, policies, and so many other things. But our population is still growing. So my question now is, why don't we look at our consumption rates and changing standards? Maybe it will get to a time where it doesn't matter, or there is nothing wrong with celebrities becoming like superheroes and wearing the same clothes on the red carpet year after year. Maybe there will be a time where it's okay for us to use the same clothes season after season. Maybe it could get to a time where it's okay that we do not look down on people or judge them based on the things that they wear. Maybe you can think about these issues and change things in your own life. See you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Green Living Chat podcast. This initiative is to educate and create awareness on things that really matter. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and comments as we get interactive on our social media platforms at Echo Ahmed Solutions on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. If you would like to be part of these conversations, contact us via email at glcpodcast@echoahmedsolutions.com or see our contact details in the show notes. See you on the next episode, and remember, live green.